Ted Comet was one of the most extraordinary individuals I have ever met. I didn't really know him well. I came to the Jewish Center for Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, the Jewish Center on Manhattan's Upper West Side, and he came over to me and introduced himself, and he was running around with no cane and no walker, but he was 100 years old. When he said that, I almost couldn't believe my own ears. He was a very, very, very special man, and it made me very sad to hear that about a month and a half ago, he passed away. On the 8th day of Passover, I had the opportunity to speak about him in the same place that I had first met him. And one of the most extraordinary things about his life, that first of all, he was 100 years old, and second of all, that he accomplished so much. Ted was born in 1924 in Cleveland, Ohio. His father was a shochet, a Jewish ritual slaughterer who usually sells kosher meat, and unfortunately, Ted became an orphan at the age of 11. And then, in 1946, Ted went to Europe volunteering for the Jewish Joint Distribution Committee, volunteering in an orphanage of Holocaust-surviving children. After the Holocaust, children who lost everything, mother, father, grandparents, siblings, everything, and they were there in this Jewish orphanage in Versailles, France. And Ted volunteered there, and he cared for them, and I cannot begin to imagine what it's like to care for the people who have suffered more than anyone else. And he's there caring for them. And I wanted to share the following story I heard from Elijah Wiesel, who is the grandson of Elie Wiesel. One day, a photographer goes to an orphanage not where Ted was, an orphanage in Paris, and it's also an orphanage for Jewish children, young people, and the photographer reports about the life of Jews who survived the Holocaust, and the photographer takes a picture of two young Jewish men playing chess with one another. The picture is available. You can see it online. He takes this picture, and it makes it into the newspaper in the United States of America. He puts it there in the newspaper, and a young woman says, "Wait a minute, my brother is in this picture. This is my brother." And she calls up Ted, and she says, "Wait, this is my brother. I thought he's dead. He's alive. And he's now in an orphanage in Paris. And my brother's name is Elie Wiesel." And Ted makes the trip from Versailles to Paris, comes to this orphanage in Paris, and he says, do you know how I can find Elie Wiesel?" And it turns out God's ways are amazing, and that person is actually Elie Wiesel. And he says, "Yeah, that's me." He says, "You have a sister that is alive in the United States of America, and she wants to see you." And Elie Wiesel says, "No, I did not know that she survived." Turns out, I believe two out of three of his sisters survived. And the rest is history, obviously. Then Elie Wiesel goes to the United States and meets his family members who survived. Now, this tells you so many different things, but one of the things to me is Ted's extraordinary dedication. He got that letter from a woman in the United States. He made the trip from Versailles to Paris, and he brought this family together just to remain with Ted, friendly with Ted for many decades to come. Then Ted moves back to the United States of America. He becomes a social worker. Why? Because his mission in life was to care, to help, to heal, especially after what he saw after the Holocaust in Europe in the orphanages. He dedicates himself and he helps others. In the orphanage, back in Paris, when he was there, he met a Holocaust survivor named Shoshana, a woman with whom he would build his future. They got married. He married her, and together they built a beautiful family dedicated to others. If you knew Ted at this point, you would think the man did so much with his life. He built a family, he volunteered, he left his mark. And if he was born in 1924, you can imagine that by the 1960s, he's already accomplished a lot. 1965, Ted looks around in New York City, and those of you who have been into New York, you know what I'm talking about. He sees every group represented in a march on Fifth Avenue. You have this day parade, that parade, every ethnic group, every country has its own parades, and you know what's missing there? An Israel Day parade. And so Ted says, you know what, I'm going to start I think the original name was something like Youth Taking Pride in Israel Parade. Anyhow, he does this parade, and he said he didn't know if anyone's going to show up. 250,000 people showed up. 250,000 people showed up to march with Israel. What an extraordinary thing. They all march with Israel. Ted is involved with a number of Zionist organizations, and his passion is caring for the Jewish people, caring for the state of Israel, nurturing others through his work in healing and social work, and being there for others. When I met Ted, he was there with a kippah, a beautiful kippah, just such a liveliness, such a youthful spirit, just a man where what you see is what you get. You can see the sincerity, the kindness, the integrity, really extraordinary. And so I had the honor to speak about Ted during Yizkor, a prayer when we remember others. We take the time, we remember others. And it was the 8th day of Passover, the time where we celebrate the Jews walking through the split sea, the splitting of the sea. And I mentioned a Dvar Torah, a word of Torah, that is quoted by it's Dvar Torah from the original Rabbi Yosef Dov Soloveitchik, the rabbi of Brisk, which is today in Belarus, and he was the rabbi of the town in the 1800s. He says, we're told about the splitting of the sea, and we're told that Moses takes the coffin of Yosef. It says, Vayikach Moshe et atzmot Yosef ito. Moshe takes the bones of Yosef with him, and he carries the coffin as they leave Egypt. And Rabbi Soloveitchik asks, why are you telling me that Moses took the coffin of Yosef when we're talking about the splitting of the sea? You should be talking about it where we're all the way back in Parshat Bo, when we're talking about the Jews packing up all their belongings. There's gold, there's silver, there's not enough time for the matzah to rise, there's not enough time for the dough to rise. That's where you should be talking about Moshe taking the coffin of Yosef. Why have you waited for the discussion of Yosef's coffin all the way until the Parsha speaking about the splitting of the sea, Parshat B'Shalach? And Rabbi Soloveitchik says very beautifully. Number one, we say, Hayam ra'av hayanos. The sea saw and it ran away. We say that in Tehillim. We say that in Hallel. Hayam ra'av hayanos. What did the sea, the ocean, the Mediterranean, see that it fled? The Midrash says, Arono shel Yosef. It saw the coffin of Yosef. It's the merit of the Aron. It's the merit of the ark of Yosef. That's what caused the sea to retreat. But there's more than that. Rabbi Aaron Walkin, who I got to know, very, very special man, he says it's not just the fact that the merit of Yosef is what caused the splitting of the sea. It's because the Jewish people knew who Yosef was. They knew about his faith in Hashem, his determination, his resiliency, his bitachon, his confidence in Hashem. They knew about that. They mustered up that same courage of Yosef. They said, oh, we see Yosef. Now we're going to muster up his same faith, his same bitachon in Hashem, and now we are going to cross the sea. And that's what they do. They cross the sea in that merit. And it's so appropriate that we say Yizkor on this 8th day of Pesach. Why? Because when we say Yizkor, we acknowledge that the miracles we have, the sea that splits before us, everything that happens for us doesn't happen on its own. It happens also in the merit of those who were here before us. It happens in the merit of people like Ted. It happens in the merit of people like our parents, grandparents, great-grandparents, and many generations before. We think about those people, we remember those people, and it's that merit that leads us through the split sea, through the many, many difficulties in life. So may their memories be a blessing, and may we remember Ted and continue to see great victories and miracles like Bnei Yisrael did on the 7th day of Pesach.